Welcome to the latest Wax Ecstatic Pack Break. I'm your host, Matt Sammon, and this week we're taking a peek at some reprint baseball cards, and in particular, the 1991 Topps Archives set, which, as the wrapper indicates here, went back to the legendary 1953 set. Now, I've got a couple of 53 Topps cards here, so we will take a look at the original cards as well as the archive reprints. But before we dive into these, I think you're really going to enjoy this show this week. It'll be coming your way on New Year's Day, Friday, January the 1st, 2021, as we brush out the old, and a lot of people will gladly kick aside the year 2020 and ring in the new. And I think it's a rather appropriate day to talk about ushering out the old and bringing in the new, where Topps Archives managed to be a new set with a nod to the old style of the legendary 1953 Topps set. Now, the 91 Topps Archives set was not the first throwback set that Topps did. However, this was the first wide-scale, nationwide attempt to get collectors to recreate a legendary set, and not just recreate the legendary set, but reimagine it a little bit, because there aren't just reproductions of these original cards from 1953. There are also what would have been cards, if you will. There are several cards that were created by Topps in 1991. They basically, quote-unquote, expanded the 1953 Topps set by 30 or 40 cards. And there's still actually one card that was in the 1953 set that was not in the 1991 archive set, and I'll explain why when we discuss that in our podcast this upcoming Friday. But first, let's open up these Topps Archives. This was a pretty big deal for Topps for a number of reasons. One, again, moving forward in their plastic, tamper-resistant packaging. Topps had already gone ahead with this in the base set for 1991, as well as Topps Stadium Club. And you'll see a lot of other Stadium Club pieces here in this look back at 1953 Topps, most notably the glossiness of the cards. Let me just pull one right here. So here's Chuck Dressen. Of course, we're starting with the dreaded manager card, right? So let me just pull this Dressen card aside just for a moment. You'll see as I get in the light here, you've got the glossy treatment here. Same on the back. Nothing else though. You're like no hidden watermarks, no other stamps, not even anything that screams that this is something that is a premium edition, a premium recreation, if you will. Now, it does note, so that nobody tried to pass this off as a 1953 Topps card, at the bottom of these cards here, it is the Ultimate 1953 Series. So that was a very classy way of saying reprint. Not that you could pass off a 1953 Topps card and a 1991 Topps Archives card. You couldn't pass this off as the real deal. Now, we'll compare and contrast in just a moment, but let's look through the pack here. So again, we're starting with the dreaded manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Chuck Dressen. That'll be our first card. We've got the Scooter, Phil Rizzuto here, shortstop for the New York Yankees. We also have Gus Zernial, then with the Philadelphia Athletics, a highly sought-after outfielder, power hitter that definitely does not get the credit that is deserved. Of course, playing for the Athletics in the early 1950s, you often got overlooked. Here's Don Dimaggio, who certainly was not as famous as his brother Joe, but was a well-known outfielder, very lengthy career. Now, this is one of the cool things that Topps did with the archive set. Recreated, or I should say created, some new cards for this particular reprint set. Basically, the players that were not included in the 1953 set, you could tell were added. Basically, what Topps did was just, include a black and white photograph in the 1953 Topps design. And here is Johnny Pesky, who, of course, was, the inspiration behind the name of the Pesky pole in Boston. Now, there would be various reasons why certain players were not featured in the original 1953 set. Some, for example, like Hank Aaron, were not featured in the 1953 set simply because he was a rookie in 1953, and Topps didn't figure that Hank Aaron really deserved a baseball card at that time, even though he was under contract. He, of course, would not make his baseball card debut until 1954. But for many players, including Pesky, who, as you can see here, as we look at the back of his card, had already played over 1,000 games in his career, this would have been more of an issue with contracts. Either Pesky did not sign a baseball card contract with Topps, or perhaps he had one with Bowman at the time, and because he was contractually obligated to Bowman, he couldn't have a Topps card. Same thing for Ralph Branca, then a pitcher with the Detroit Tigers, of course. Infamously, the pitcher of the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1951, served up that home run to Bobby Thompson. We've got Bill Wurley of the Boston Red Sox. I love that old Red Sox logo. As goofy and phallic as it is, you don't see logos like that anymore. Here's Bobo Holloman of the St. Louis Browns. Speaking of old St. Louis Browns, here's another 53 card that we have. And in fact, we had Cliff Fannin as our random player. I love the old Brownie the Elf there. That's a great logo from back in the day. Who else do we have here? We've got Paul Minner of the Chicago Cubs, and a very cuddly Cub bear there. Smokey Burgess, catcher for the Fightin' Phillies. We've got Sid Gordon of the Boston Braves. Ben Wade of the Brooklyn Dodgers. And that is that for that pack. All right, so let's take a look at the other pack, and then we'll do a quick compare and contrast with the original 1953 Topps set. So we open up pack number 2. As I struggle to open up the plastic here on this pack here, it's the downside of some of this tamper-resistant packaging. Sometimes it was open-resistant packaging. All right, who do we have here? Let's start with Eddie Robinson of the Chicago White Sox. That's another great logo of the time there. I call it the Goodyear logo because it seems to be more for selling tires than for a baseball team. All right, let's see who else we have here. The chairman of the board, recently passed, Whitey Ford. Great shot there. 1953, of course, would have been very early in his career. In fact, you can see here too, in the military service. Actually, let me hold it up that way. So serving in the military during the Korean War, and only had 20 games of experience there at that point in time. Another great pitcher, Mel Parnell with the rival Red Sox. We've got Bob Oldest of the Washington Senators. And that's a pretty cool logo too. Hanging with Mr. Hooper here. Bob Hooper, the Cleveland Indians. Hutch. Fred Hutchinson. Great pitcher. Great manager too. Later with the Cincinnati Reds. Bill Conley of the New York Giants. Jim Greengrass of the Cincinnati Reds. Let's see who we have here. Ken Heintzelman of the Philadelphia Phillies. We've got Jim Pendleton, of the Milwaukee Braves. That's interesting. Let me hang on here. Didn't we have a Boston Brave here? We sure did. Now this is interesting. I've got to look this up, see if this was actually something that happened back then. So you have Sid Gordon here and Jim Pendleton, both of the Braves, yet we have a Boston Brave and a Milwaukee Brave. And the team was in Milwaukee then. I wonder if this was a series issue, because the Braves, their ownership moved the team to Milwaukee just weeks before the start of the 1953 season. So I'll have to look this up, but it's interesting. Let's see, card number 117. This probably would have been second series. could have been printed while the team was still in Boston. And then card number 185 probably would have been a third series. By then, the team in Milwaukee, and you could see a very, before the days of airbrushing, you could see a very basic M just painted on the cap there. All right, we've got Henry Foyles here of the Cincinnati Reds, followed by, who we have, Carlos Bernier of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, let's do a quick compare and contrast here, and let me do it. We'll start with Smokey Burgess. So we'll put him here, and let me get my Monty Irvin. We'll put him here. Now, you can see the biggest issue is, of course, the original 1953 Topps did not have the gloss. Now, I've got this in a top holder here, so it does appear to be glossy, but I can promise you, if I were to take this out of the top holder, there would be no gloss there. So this was just your standard brown cardboard from the mid-1950s. Now, the biggest difference is the size. Baseball cards manufactured by Topps, and this was a Cy Berger creation of 1952, were still very much larger than life. Let me zoom in here too so you can see some of the differences, okay? The recreation of 53 Topps, if I put one on top of the other here and I'll line it up with the bottom, you can see that the original Topps was slightly larger. So if I line it up here, you can see that difference here of about 1/4 of an inch up top and 1/8 of an inch on the side. So that's how you can always tell if you were to flip a card over and look at the archive. Like, let's say somebody just puts this card on eBay and claims it to be an original 1953 Topps card and somehow gets it in the light to where you can't see the gloss. You can always compare and contrast, and you'll note that the biggest issue is, again, the size difference. So let me zoom out here just a little bit. All right. Get this lined up there once again. And there you go. Okay, you can see there's a little bit of space on the top and on the side. Other than the size difference, pretty much everything else is the same. So we'll flip the cards over like I was showing you earlier. And Topps holding true to the overall design, the colors, the layout, basically taking the exact same backs of 1953 Topps cards. And again, really the only difference is adding this, Ultimate 1953 Series stamp on the bottom here. And in fact, Topps, and let me bring this up nice and close here, right there underneath fielding record, you can see it says copyright TCG printed in USA. That's still a nod to how they were originally stamped back in 1953. There you can see underneath Monty Irvin. So a pretty neat thing here that Topps did in 1991, honoring the set from 1953. Now again, this was not the first throwback set that Topps did. We'll give you details about the first complete throwback set that they did several years before this 1991 Topps Archive set. And we'll also discuss how this was a springboard for what is now Topps Heritage, which has been going on for more than 20 years. And Topps Heritage will be coming out again in the spring, throwing it back 49 years. That's what Topps has been doing ever since they released the Heritage sets, going back 49 years. So this upcoming season, Topps Heritage will be going back to the rather flashy, gaudy Electric Company 1972 look, which will be kind of fun. But we're not going to be stuck in the 70s. We're going to go back to the 50s and the early 1990s on our next podcast. Again, coming on New Year's Day, Friday, January 1st, 2021, we'll go back 30 years, back to a time where Topps turned back the clock by 28 years, or 38 years, I should say. My math's a little hazy there. So we're going to go minus 30, then minus 38 on January 1st, 2021. We'll throw all the numbers around for you then. On our latest podcast, it will drop at noon Eastern, and that will come via Audio Boom and all of our RSS feeds that pick it up, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Stitcher, Blueberry, Spotify, Google Play, you name it. We will be there. Have a safe and happy New Year's Eve, and we'll be talking to you on New Year's Day.